Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Shreya Upadhyay. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you all to the book launch event of Friends, India's closest strategic partners by Professor Sreeram Chaulia. Ladies and gentlemen, we are honored to have amidst us this evening India's External Affairs Minister, Dr. Sreeram J Shanker, a man who needs no introduction except perhaps how he's known as amongst the youngsters of this country, and we have many of them today here, as a rock star. And particularly for all that he has been doing for the nation and its position in an ever-evolving and unstable global geopolitical situation. Sir, we're delighted to have you among us. As the world grapples with 2 wars and a crucial United States election in just 2 days, who better than Dr. J Shanker to talk about India's nuanced diplomatic path, her friendships, her partnerships, and her strategic alliances. And I say each term separately because as students of international relations, we would know that partnerships are different from alliances, a difference that Professor Chaulia refers to in his book as live-in relationship versus marriage. We will talk about this and much more through this evening, but first I'd request Mr. Kapish Mishra, Managing Director, Rupa Publications, for the welcome address.
Thank you, Shreya. It is a bit disconcerting to stand here because for all of you who may not realize, on the peripheral vision you suddenly seem to be finding that there's somebody staring at you, and that is nobody else but a blow-up image of the author, which has been reproduced very well, almost like a Mona Lisa. He looks at you wherever you look. Publishers normally don't get away by sort of, having a laugh at the author's expense, but book launches give us that opportunity. So, with all due respect. First of all, a very good evening to the Honorable Chief Guest, Dr. J Shanker, the author, Honorable panelists, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I don't think as a publisher I am really supposed to be talking too much about the book Friends, simply because there is a panel discussion, there are experts who are, who can talk about it in greater detail than I can. There are only 2 things that, one would like to mention from a publishing standpoint. One is that it is considered extremely auspicious that a best-selling author should be releasing a book of another author. And having Dr. J Shanker release Dr. Chaulia's book is a blessing in disguise on Govardhan Puja, because there couldn't have been a better day where the man who carries the Govardhan Parvat against all the rains that keep lashing on the Indian subcontinent is actually releasing the book of the new one. So many congratulations. Dr. J Shanker, ladies and gentlemen, as we already know, has the most unenviable job in the country. In a time when it's difficult to differentiate between friends and enemies, he has to walk the tightrope between friends of enemies and enemies of enemies. And sometimes you tend to lose the difference between enemies and friends. And because of such situations, books like Friends are born. There couldn't have been a better time in our geopolitical scenario for a book like this. I thank Dr. Chaulia for giving us this opportunity. And before the launch, ladies and gentlemen, I asked him the oft asked question to an author, what's next and when's next? So I'm already nudging him. For all of you who had that up your sleeve, be rest assured, we will be coming back with something else later. So thank you, Dr. Chaulia, and once again, thank you, sir, for making the time today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mishra. I now request Professor Dr. C Rajkumar, Vice Chancellor, Jindal Global University and President, Jindal India Institute, to please say a few words.
A very good evening to all of you. Normally, as academics, when we do write books and attempt to have book launches, and I've had this many here in this room, if you have 20, 30 people, that's already a pretty successful event. And if you really want to have a large crowd, you probably get a cricketer or a movie star or some sort of a celebrity. But here we have an extraordinary man in our Foreign Affairs Minister, who's not only a distinguished minister but also a true scholar. And for him to grace this occasion and to celebrate the publication of my colleague Dr. Sreeram Chaulia's book, not only this book but also the earlier one, where he was there when Dr. Mohan Kumar's book was launched, it speaks volumes about the fact that our chief guest today recognizes the importance of scholarly work and also the important intellectual engagement that comes with this type of scholarly work. So I am deeply grateful to you, sir, for taking time out of your very busy schedule to be here and to indeed encourage our faculty members. I also want to take this moment to congratulate Dr. Sreeram Chaulia, who joined the university as a young associate professor in the year 2009 when we began the journey of the university. He was at that time at the law school as a historian, and the last 15 years has been a truly remarkable journey of Dr. Sreeram Chaulia, not only contributing immensely towards institution building, including becoming the dean of the then newly established Jindal School of International Affairs, but also being a prolific scholar. He is also an iconic academic in the sense that very rarely you have academics who are able to do all three things that are critical to be a good scholar and a researcher. One, he is an administrator, he manages a school. Second, he is a fantastic teacher. Generations of students who have got the benefit of being his student would vouch for the fact that he is an inspiring teacher. And third, he is a prolific writer and scholar. And so it's a very rare combination in the world of academia that Dr. Chaulia has demonstrated. And so I want to take this moment to congratulate him and also his wife Usha and his children, because a lot of burden of the work that Sreeram does adversely impacts on the family as well. And so it's also a moment for us to cherish the contribution of Usha and his son and daughter, all of whom will cherish this moment for having Sreeram publish his book. So congratulations once again to you, Sreeram. I am not an international relations scholar, but I want to make one important announcement because I know that Dr. J Shanker will appreciate this. In the month of June, when we were thinking about what should we be doing this year, as this year marks a very important year in the history of our university. We are celebrating the 15th anniversary of our university. We also thought of what we could be doing at a national level. This year marks another important occasion, which is that India will be celebrating the 75th anniversary of the adoption of the Constitution of India. On 26 November 1949, we adopted the Constitution, and this year on 26 November, we'll be celebrating its 75th anniversary. And quite remarkably, I recognize that we don't have what we are calling a Constitution Museum in our country. Neither the Parliament nor the Supreme Court nor any of our other institutions have had the opportunity to build a Constitution Museum. We embarked on the journey in the month of June, and I'm happy to report that by 26th of November this year, we will be inaugurating India's first Constitution Museum and the Rights and Freedoms Academy on our campus. I've shared with all of you a vision paper of the museum and the academy. But today is also very special because I thought after the launch of the book itself, we have just published a commemorative edition of the Constitution of India. I plan to present the early copies, in fact, not formally release it yet, to our Honorable Chief Guest, the commemorative edition of the Constitution of India to mark the 75th anniversary of the adoption of the Constitution of India. I just want to make that announcement on this solemn occasion and once again thank all of you for being present here and to celebrate the contribution of Dr. Sreeram Chaulia. Deeply appreciate all of your presence and indeed your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kumar. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I request the author himself, Professor Sreeram Chaulia, Dean, Jindal School of International Affairs and Director General, Jindal India Institute, to share his thoughts. Please give it up for Professor Sreeram Chaulia.
Thank you, Shreya. Namaskar. It's a great honor and a milestone in my career that the Foreign Minister of India has spared his valuable time to launch my new book, Friends. I just, sir, with your permission, I'll share a small anecdote. He has appeared thrice on my TV show on Doordarshan, and I'll give you one example of why we feel so proud of him. It was the week before the G20 summit, September 2023, and we are hosting it, a very high-stakes summit. I start the book, Friends, with the G20 summit, if you read the introduction, and how we pulled off the coup. So it was a Monday, I think, and Dr. J Shanker came to Doordarshan, to Monday House, and we were just discussing before the recording, and I said, sir, I'm sure you must be all very tense, and because of the behind the scenes diplomacy to get the the joint communique issued. And he just smiled and said, why, it's only Monday, it's just the start of the week, let's enjoy the week. He's always been cool, composed, but also very steely, and that's what makes him that rock star or a favorite, especially of young India. And there's so many young people here who come from different institutions across Delhi NCR, and I think it's really a treat for them in particular. Dr. J Shanker has also nurtured and elevated our strategic partnerships. So it's so befitting that he has given us time. He has argued that investing in relationships is the most critical task for India's quest to be a leading power. So that's, in fact, you see him day in and out doing that only, right? Especially with these, what I consider to be a top 7 partners, but there are so many others. And every single day, it's like a gardening, patient gardening task that he does day in and out. And we are better off as a result of this. We often say this about armed forces, that, because they're keeping the security at the borders and in the oceans, we sleep safe and sound. But he's also fighting for the country on the world stage, and we all believe that this is a big quest to be a leading power. A brief about the book. I want to mention a couple of points I believe are the central elements of the book. The first is that there is a link between India's rise and its friendships. And this I have illustrated through these 7 countries: Japan, Australia, US, Russia, France, Israel, and the UAE. And what I've argued is that as India's standing in the world rises to a higher and higher level, the way we see these friendships, the way we manage these friendships, the way we try to extract the most from these friendships, and the way we make them more strategic is something worth watching over time. So some of these partners that I've covered in the book are not new in the sense they have come when Dr. J Shanker was still in the Foreign Service, and many of his esteemed former colleagues are also here in the audience. They will remember these friendships, but the nature of these friendships have changed. And what I'm saying is that in this current era, where the post-Cold War period is over, where great power competition is all over the place, and where it's a very tricky situation for a rising power like India, the friendships have a different meaning and substance and purpose and intent. They have become sharper, more security oriented, especially in the Narendra Modi era. And my point is that this is the most critical element for us to become a leading power in time to come. The second main takeaway in my view is that friends matter in dealing with the ugly realities of power politics. As I have mentioned in the book, friends are vital not only for economic gain, for mutual economic exchange and benefit, but also for security and for geopolitical ambit of a country to spread. So for India to become a leading power or a great power, the classic definition we use in the theory is that it should have significant influence beyond its immediate surroundings. Meaning, yes, neighborhood is critical, neighborhood first, but also in places farther away. And that is usually considered to be one of the markers of a great power, or what we call a leading power. So for that to happen, we need these friends, because what we do with them helps expand our influence there. And it's not only a one-way traffic. They are friends with us because they gain and benefit from being friends with us. So each of these countries, Japan, Australia, US, Russia, France, Israel, and UAE, I have shown extensively in the book that each of them benefits us, and they also gain from being with us, from partnering with us, for teaming up with us in so many theaters and so many different domains. Let me conclude by just paraphrasing President John F. Kennedy. Ask not, you all know the famous quote, right? Ask not what your country has done for you, ask what you have done for your country. When you look at it from the perspective of our friends, and when they see India, ask not what your friends can do for you, ask what you can do for your friends. This is something, a mark of a leader or of a leading power, that you are able to actually add value to them. Often when we talk about a national interest based logic and discourse, we all ask, what are we getting from this friendship or this relationship, right? But what are they getting from us? This is also something I've highlighted because it's a two-way street. So India's ambit and influence are expanding via its friends, and also vice versa. The friends help solve India's strategic dilemmas, and India helps solve the strategic dilemmas of our friends. So we have more time to go into the nitty-gritty, and we have a brilliant panel discussion coming up, and I won't take too much of Dr. J Shanker's time, but I simply will say that this is a moment for us to nurture these friendships more, and I hope that this book adds to the thinking about how we have a systematic approach in the Narendra Modi era to building these friendships, to extract that strategic stuff or content out of them, and for us to reap the dividends of it for the generations to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Chaulia. Ladies and gentlemen, I know we're all very, very eager to hear Dr. J Shanker, but before that, let me first request the Honorable Minister to kindly unveil Friends India's Closest Strategic Partners, written by Professor Sreeram Chaulia. Thank you, sir. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to invite our chief guest for this evening, Honorable Minister of External Affairs of India, Dr. Subramaniam J. Shankar, to kindly share a few words.
Professor Sreeram Chaulia, Professor C Rajkumar, Mr. Kapish Brera, friends. I appreciate the invitation to join the release of Professor Sreeram Chaulia's latest book, Friends, India's Closest Strategic Partners. So, do allow me to take the opportunity to share some views on this subject. India is today positioning itself as a Vishwamitra. We seek to be friends with as many as possible. This obviously generates goodwill and positivity towards us. It is reflected in the growing contribution we make to global good, and indeed in the closer engagement with the international community. In some ways, this is diplomacy 101. You could even say common sense. If you look deeper, there are cultural and historical factors at work as well, including the fact that we are not a dogmatic civilization. There is a capability aspect as well, which accounts for the self-confidence with which we approach the world. Now, because we are friendly, does this automatically mean that we have many friends? Certainly, as this book demonstrates, the metrics of evaluating relationships make a very powerful case that these have progressed very significantly in India, for India. Yet it is important not to overstate, not to oversimplify, and not to overassume. Life is more complicated than that. Now, the term friends itself has a certain quaintness, a certain, I would even say, an innocence to it. The truth is that relationships develop when interests intersect or at least converge. Undoubtedly, sentiment and values do play a part, but not when divorced from interests. This is the story of each one of the ties that Professor Sreeram Chaulia has examined. Now, personal association with these transformations do enable me to offer my own insights. Three of them, US, Japan and Australia, have benefited from the Quad. They are actually examples of overcoming the hesitations of history. Two, UAE and Israel are from a region that is being engaged comprehensively at last. And the final two, Russia and France, are actually statements of multipolarity, ours as much as theirs. If all these ties have changed so much in the last decade, I'm sure you would agree with me that much of the credit should go to Prime Minister Narendra Modi for his personal interest and leadership. Because remember, at least three of them had not even seen a high-level visit for 3 decades. In other cases, there were either pressures on us to limit our interaction, or in a few cases, long-standing ideological doubts to overcome. Now, who is a friend in world affairs is not as easy a question as it appears. Quite apart from convergent interests, there are instincts, trust, solidarity, and respect at play. They explain a lot of the bonding that we often see on the international stage. But there are definitely some special ties for us whose very nature merit deeper analysis. In fact, I would even say hard questions. So let me foray in that direction. Cultivating friendships for a large power like India is never easy. Certainly, there is the emotional factor that comes from shared experiences, and you can see that most visibly in respect of the global south. I mean, we all have a certain historical commonality. However, smaller partners need both constant reassurance and non-reciprocal handling. We see that as well in our neighborhood first policy. Whether it is our actual capability or potential one, our presence in the world order today also attracts competition. As we move towards becoming a leading power, this will only grow. Even friendships will not be without some hedging. Relating to other major powers is also a challenge in itself. The more global they are, the broader are their range of activities and interests. Some may converge more, some less so, and at times, in fact, some may even diverge. Sometimes friends have other friends who may not necessarily be ours. They may, for example, reflect the dilemmas of the old order and the new. It is therefore essential that we never confuse convergence for congruence. Friendships are also not exclusive, particularly so in a multipolar world. It is only to be expected that others, even friends, will seek to maintain their option while restricting ours. You will from time to time hear that our contemporary realism is projected as some kind of inherited dogmatism. Believe me, this is really a mind game at work. Some friends may also be more complicated than others. They may not always share the same culture of mutual respect or ethos of diplomatic etiquette. We have from time to time seen comments on our domestic issues accompanied by a professed desire to have honest conversations. However, the same courtesies are rarely accorded to the other side. What is freedom for one can apparently become interference from the other. The fact is that sensitivities like sovereignty and territorial integrity will always be a factor in evaluating partners. So let me, as a practitioner, conclude by highlighting what friends are and equally what they are not. They are about comfort and convergence with an easy ability to work with each other. They are about mutual respect, understanding the compulsions of the other party, and maximizing common ground. Friends are not always black and white, nor will friendships be linear in their development. They may have their challenges, but are no less for it. Friends, in the final analysis, are always work in progress. So, in an imperfect, competitive, and evolving global order, let us take this approximate judgment of friends and use it as a convenient yardstick for analysis. This book brings out how much progress we have made in the last decade. I'm confident that its next edition would be even longer. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, sir. I now request Professor Chaulia, Dr. Kumar and Mr. Mishra to please felicitate the Honorable Minister. Thank you, everybody. We now, of course, have a panel discussion up ahead. So we have, Dr. J Shanker, of course, has to catch a flight, so we will let him go. You're going to see a friend. Which friend is it, sir?
Chapter 2.
So thank you, sir. Our best wishes. Thank you very much for honoring this event.